Hey all, X-Art student here. Today I'm going to create another little clay sculpture based on a sketch. So I actually came up with this idea because I saw a Fearless and Far video about like voodoo gods, I think. I'll put a picture up here. And I love the colors and the textures and how they design their costume. And I kind of wanted to make something similar where my little demon boy is going to have colorful feathers and beads and just be something totally different than something I've ever made before. I like to try sketching in the mornings after I work out and when I'm eating breakfast, so then I kind of get warmed up. And usually during this time, I'll sketch while watching YouTube, or I'll just get inspired by a book or Pinterest or something. Honestly, I'm not that great at sticking to sketching every morning, but I'm trying to do that just to warm up my muscles of sketching and art making. So like I said, I wanted to create this little demon sheep boy, and he's going to be some kind of deity or demon devil, and he has to be worshipped. So I started off with the aluminum foil as the base, adding the air-dried clay, and trying to shape it the best I can to the figure that I want. Here I'm rolling out the clay really thin so then I could use it to wrap around the horns to give it a little bit more of a texture and make it more visually interesting. I found my trusty fondant roller and I made sure that the clay was flat in order to cut out these little eyepieces. After I had the shapes, I used my fingers to make sure it was smooth and the shape that I actually wanted. I repeated the same rolling process in order to create all the feather shapes. I actually found this cool sculpting tool. Don't know what it's actually used for, but it does give a cool feather shape, and I decided to use it kind of like Play-Doh. It made the work a lot easier for me instead of individually cutting each one, and I was able to form it, get rid of little imperfections, cut out ones that didn't cut all the way through with the little tool that I had, and just make it what I wanted so it kind of looked more like a feather. I knew eventually when I had to layer on all of these feathers, having the same size wouldn't be the best. I think variation would be good, so I made small and big ones, and then eventually went into each feather with some little details, so I cut it out kind of like a leaf. And I think this helped make a differentiation between each one, and it more visually appealing to just take a look at. And it's easier for me to paint too if something looks not as boring. I decided to start off with some gesso once my clay piece was dry, and I figured it'd be a good base so then the acrylic paint could actually stick to it. I decided the body should be this color changing purpley gold because that's what's going to show through underneath the feathers if anything does show through. And I wanted it to be something interesting to look at, and I felt like color changing would be really cool amongst all the colorful feathers. The skin of the creature was going to be black, just because it was a stark contrast from the rainbow feathers. I had no real plan or color scheme with the feathers, I just wanted it to be really colorful, kind of like a parrot. And sometimes I would blend the colors, make it kind of ombre, sometimes I would just do complementary colors, anything that made these pieces pop out. I wanted variation because I needed a lot of them to make this look really good and cover the body. I used a paint marker to do the edges of each feather so then it would hide any imperfections, and it would create some contrast, as well as a little bit less work for me with color matching the paint. And once everything was dry, it was time to start gluing. I kind of just picked colors that I liked or designs that I liked and put it on my piece. But later I realized I have to go about this kind of like shingles on a roof. Start it at the bottom and add the layers on top, so then it would lay correctly. Being able to pick any color that I wanted to add next was so much fun. I kind of felt like someone doing a mosaic or tile work, and I just got to create my own little rainbow for my little demon dude. And if it didn't look good, I pop it off because the hot glue isn't that great for some reason. I think I need different glue. I was able to rearrange it easily and loved what I came up with. Unfortunately, I did need a lot more, and because I needed more, I decided to make these beads as well. They're part of my original designs. These beads are going to be little skulls that go on the crown of my demon. I used a paint marker to paint the details. They wouldn't always turn out great. Some of them would be blotchy or too big, but the thinner they were, the better it looked. Now it's time for the second round of colorful feathers. I used the bigger pieces to fill in the bigger areas, and the small pieces to get those tiny ones. I also used the small pieces to add different colors here and there, so it made it a lot more pretty to look at. Then I went in with a paint marker and added little design details to every feather or almost every feather. I think it tied in the piece, it brought the black back in, and kind of hid some imperfections on the feathers, as well as just made it look really tribal and I think pretty cool. In my original sketch, my beads are just supposed to come from the top of the head of the demon, but I figured it might look kind of weird having like a whole glue spot on its head. So I eventually figured out if I made this gold crown and attached the strings there, it would probably look a lot better. And then I could move the crown around. So I put 2 black beads, a skull bead, 2 black beads, tied it off at a random point, and then continued the pattern. I didn't want it to be uniform. I wanted it to be kind of lopsided, like it was made in the jungle or not in a factory. I was having a lot of trouble with figuring out what color the eyes should be. I thought white might be a cool contrast, and I wanted it to be this sketchy design. I continued that same sketchy look on the horns as well and added some pink. I finished adding my little details, my final design touches, and thought that this would be it. I placed the crown on and realized that the white of the eyes and the white of the beads was too much, so I decided to paint over it. Sometimes you just gotta try it first, realize it's a mistake, and then paint over it, and there's no harm there. I then painted the feet black. I was originally going to do a chicken-like texture, but it was too hard to paint in that angle, so I just gave up and did black. Here, I'm applying UV resin. I did it in sections because I only have a tiny UV lamp, and I didn't want to mess up. In the past, I've had some trouble with UV, so I wanted to go very slowly, make sure everything hardened and everything was where it needed to be. Part of why I did the resin was so then the piece would be hard and the feathers wouldn't fall off, because the hot glue was not holding it together and I did not want to use Gorilla Glue to keep it together. And now my piece is done. Let's take a look at those close-up shots. and that's my final piece. I actually love this guy. I made something totally different from what I normally make, and I think I'm slightly getting better at clay stuff or sculpture stuff, so I was really happy with it. I love the bright colors, the crown is so cool, it's just so unique, and I really, really like it. I'm glad that I happened to watch that video before I decided to make something. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking me out on Instagram, TikTok, or Etsy. Like, comment, subscribe if you would like, and I'm so happy you joined me. See you next week. Thanks. Bye.